Team Mississippi Farm Bureau. It was not a low-scoring affair last night in New Orleans. There were a couple of big innings for Southern Miss. 8 runs in the top of the third inning. Turned a 2-0 deficit in an 8-2 lead. And then 3 runs in the top of the ninth inning, which turned a 10-8 deficit into an 11-10 lead. And then a save at the end as Justin Storm pitched the final inning with a couple of strikeouts. And Southern Miss won 11-10 over Tulane last night in New Orleans to get to 24-15 overall. Luke, that's a good win, especially given some of the issues in the midweek this year.
It's a good win, but I think people probably used multiple doses of blood pressure medicine last night. And Eagles tried to give it away late, had that 8 spot, and then Dickerson gets on in the ninth, and Wilkes hits a bomb, and then they change pitchers. And the first pitch of the new pitcher, Sargent goes oppo bomb, which is good to see him starting to get some power back. And then Justin Storm, probably Storm's best ninth inning. The last batter he faced was Schultz for Tulane. He'd already hit 2 home runs, and Storm took care of him to end the game. But yeah, it was a fun one at Turchin. Eagles went with Johnny Holstaff's kind of the way they are. Sibley started it, and it was just like a midweek bullpen for him. They're going to do the same thing now against Louisiana Tech with Nico Mazza starting. So that's just kind of the approach they're taking in the midweeks for these last few weeks.
How about the season that Slade Wilkes is having? He's hitting .338, 16 bombs, 11 doubles, got a triple. He's driven in 45 on the season. Just been really, really steady.
He has, and it's been his ability to be more patient. Last year, he would swing at some bad pitches kind of early in the count and get behind, and then pretty much if he got behind, he was going to strike out. But this year, he's learned to hit secondary pitches, and he's been more patient. Still striking out. I mean, he's a slugger, but I mean, you look at the OPS and what he's doing. It's pretty remarkable how he has developed. And there's been chatter. People frustrated with some offensive stuff, and Travis Creel's names gets thrown under the bus sometimes. But I'll tell you what, I mean, Wilkes has improved drastically as not just a power hitter, but as a contact hitter under Travis Creel.
Are you still surprised when you look at kind of the team numbers, the overall numbers, and you see a Danny Lynch hitting .242, Carson Paetow hitting .239, Reese Ewing hitting .235, Sargent hitting .211. I mean, that's just not what we expected from those 4 guys in particular.
Yeah, the one that really scratches your head, a lot is Paetow. Ewing's is down, and some of that's just because Ewing, he's been platooned a little bit, but Paetow was given the opportunity early on. He started in a 3-hole, and that's kind of everybody saw him going on. Lynch has had moments where, he batted over 300 a few years back. I would think he would be more in the 260 to 270 range. But I mean, before I think last weekend, he was somewhere in the high 260s, low 270s. So some of these guys are dipping back and forth. On the flip side, the encouraging one, you look at Christopher Sargent and you say 211, what's up with that? But I mean, that has risen drastically over the last month. And Lynch is really, he's dropped back down to 240, but like I said, where he was up, that's allowing Slade Wilkes to continue at what he's doing because it finally gave him some protection in the lineup.
D1 Baseball's most recent projection has Southern Miss as a 2 seed in Baton Rouge. Is that good news or bad news? LSU is the number 1 overall seed in the tournament.
I mean, I think if you're Southern Miss and you have early projections like this, I mean, where else are you going to go? I mean, you could go to Gainesville. There was, a few people out there that was saying Dallas because Dallas Baptist is hosting, which would be unique since they already played earlier in the year. But we talked to Aaron Fitt today. He was on the Eagle Hour, and he basically said, if you're not going to host in a normal year, you're going to end up in, Oxford, Starkville, Baton Rouge, Fayetteville. That's just part of it. I mean, that's just the way that they're doing now. It was interesting. Aaron Fitt still said, and outside shot, Southern Miss is still in 22 teams if they got on a roll. they could possibly host. I think the RPI is going to take a hit, unlike it has all season the next few weeks. But who knows if you get on a run. But yeah, I would. You and I were discussing it during the break. I don't want to be in Baton Rouge because there's no way that Jay Johnson is throwing Paul Skeens against the 4 team. And so whoever the 2 seed is in Baton Rouge will see the best pitcher in the nation game 2.
And he's pretty good. I mean, saw him in person last Friday night, and maybe not as dominant as he has been at times this year. I thought the velocity was down a little bit. Instead of being 99 to 102, he was like 97 to 99. I mean, I know that's still pretty dominant in college baseball, and he had double-digit strikeouts in the game. But yeah, the thing for me is, though, they pretty good punch, 1-2 punch. Ty Floyd was good as their second starter as well. But I tend to agree with you that they're going to try to win that first game with whomever they can. But given LSU's pitching situation and kind of a lack of depth because of some injuries, it's not like they can just run their midweek guy out there, because the midweek guy last night lost to Nichols and, 2 weeks ago lost to Louisiana. And I don't even know that they really know who that midweek guy is, quote unquote.
Yeah, and that's, I think some teams are finding themselves like that. The other storyline would be, I can't remember if it was Baseball America. Don't quote me on that, but it was last week. An early projection had Southern Miss going to Gainesville. And so that would mean that if you win game 1, you're facing your old teammate, Hurston Waldrop, in game 2, which, he's phenomenal pitcher. But, I mean, it's stuff that, the Eagles have seen before. But regardless right now, you got to win series. And if you win series, you probably will not still, you're not going to host because the RPI is going to take a hit. I mean, La Tech tonight, 132. Arkansas State this weekend, 242. Tulane's at 203. South Al's at 119. ULM's at 217. And then Louisiana right now is at 74. And so, whereas up until last night, Southern Miss did not have a single quad 4 game in their RPI, they're about to have a whole slew of them down the stretch.
Yeah. And so the only way you counteract an RPI hit is to stack up a ton of wins.
And that's what you've got to do. I mean, you got to avenge the latte. You got to win tonight, and you just have to sweep. Like these home against Arkansas. You can probably split, or you can probably win a series against South Al, but you got to sweep Arkansas State. You just have to. And so, you're at 24 right now. You got 14 to go. If you get to 35 to 36, going into the tournament, might get fun there for a minute.
Might be. We'll see how it plays out. Anything you're watching draft-wise? Obviously not tomorrow night, but over the course of days 2 and 3, as it pertains to Southern Miss football?
Yeah, the number 1 guy would be Jason Brownlee. It's kind of interesting. ESPN put out their mock draft today, and he's not listed in 7 rounds, but Kuiper actually had him inside the top 100. Overall prospects, which I found pretty interesting. I could see Brownlee going like 5th to 6th round. Eric Scott's another guy at 6'2", a 4'4" guy at cornerback. Patriots really showed some interest in him. I could see him, going 6th or 7th. But those 2 guys obviously will land somewhere if they don't get drafted. But I think even like a 6th round Brownlee has an opportunity to be a real steal for somebody just because of his ability to go up and catch the football.
Yeah. He had great numbers, right? I mean, he was he one of the ones that got banged up during the season, missed some time, or was he able to go the whole way?
He was out for a few weeks, but I mean, you put him up in a jump ball situation, he's like a force field, And I mean, you look at the numbers that he had with how just volatile the quarterback situation was. I'm sure Frank probably had more touchdown passes to him than anybody else. So that just kind of shows, what he can do.
I wonder what it'll look like for Frank Gore Jr. a year from now.
You got to feel like with his pedigree and the way that running backs have specific roles. I mean, I think there's a case to be made if he were to bulk just a little bit. He's would be a great 3rd down back. I mean, great receiving back out of the backfield. I think he has an opportunity to do that. I don't think return game will be his strength, but as far as his IQ and what he can do in open space, I think somebody would take a chance at him. And his dad will be lobbying for him big time.
Yeah, I would think so. Would be his biggest advocate. 6 o'clock tonight, Pete.